ears.
The power, right?
Like the onion, when the onion calls you fuckface von clownstick, something's really wrong. I think he just assumes that's par for the course. But no, we didn't have leaders before George Bush and Trump that got called fuckface von clownstick by the general public. We didn't have that till the Republicans.
Right up there with the likes of Richard III and Oliver Cromwell. Except this is happening in 2001. Wasn't Tony Blair in power for like many more years?
Yeah,
after
12 or
As
something.
the Gilligan's
Yeah.
actual report later on in the show, it was essentially just a more hurdy-wordy version of his initial teaser statement, so we won't.
Sometimes I miss my friend Dave because I know he's facing all of this. He struck me as an independently wealthy guy because he had a kind of I don't want to talk about his situation, but he is facing this, and I feel some sorrow for him. I feel that our governments have kind of left us behind. They don't care if we live or die anymore, you know? Destitution at the end of your life. It's what every fucking human really truly dreads, is having to be completely destitute when you're too old to take care of yourself. And I think that's the whole goal of all this, is to make everybody unhappy and really, really fucking like really uncomfortable when they're old. It's weird. It's as if Satan picked a bunch of goals and just told the rich white people to go attain them. It's really weird.
He said specifically, but we will pick out a couple of details of note from among it all. For starters, did anything strike you as peculiar about how he described Dr. Kelly, specifically as one of the senior officials in charge of drawing up that dossier? Well, that's just not correct, is it? We already know full well who drew it up, and it certainly wasn't Dr. Kelly, and yet it'd just been, albeit anonymously, labelled as such in front of millions of listeners. Wait, anonymously? Oh, okay, I get it. What also didn't help things along was the fact that Gilligan, for some reason, rather than making sure to pick his words very carefully, as a journalist should obviously do when breaking such a sensitive story, instead went way off script, resulting in a tirade that, frankly, had little resemblance to reality as Dr. Kelly had described it, outright describing the 45-minute claim as being artificially and intentionally inserted into the dossier in order to manipulate a false perception of reality, rather than being the opinion of a single source that wasn't doubly cited as per others, and that may have been intentionally inserted, knowing it stood upon weaker foundations, but equally likely could have simply slipped through the editorial net thanks to rose-tinted enthusiasm for saber-rattling. Yeah, so basically, it's not one or the other. It does seem that the government fancied up, or like somehow this dossier got a bit fancied up, but not to the level that this dude seems to be saying, which seems, I don't know, as someone who makes videos, you gotta couch your words, dude. You can't just be like accusing people of that you don't have any proof for, allegedly. It's a small difference, sure, but a very important one when breaking a story like this. The government's initial response came at 7:32 a.m., not even 2 hours after Gilligan's first remarks, the swiftness of which alone shows how seriously they were taking it. Yeah, no they're taking it seriously. If they didn't refute this, then people are going to be like, oh my god, they agree with it. As for what they said, they flatly denied the allegations, saying that, quote, not one word of the dossier was not entirely the work of the intelligence agencies. And, in my opinion only, of course, the double negative word soup that is that, quote, screams of Campbellian newspeak. The quality of the quote and the government's denial is ultimately neither here nor there for our discussion today, though. Oh, I see. Not one word of the dossier was not entirely. It's like, yeah, it is very political speak, isn't it? What is of interest to us, however, is the fact that Gilligan, after having had some time to think on the matter, not only chose to stick to his line, but also escalated the situation even further, as in a subsequent article for the Mail on Sunday titled, I asked my intelligence sources why Blair misled us all over Saddam's weapons. His reply, one word, Campbell. He outright called Alistair Campbell out as a knowing and intentional liar, and Dr. Kelly was his supposed source for it. Bro, you have gone wildly off script. Wildly. How is whoever the lawyers are at Mail on Sunday being like, bro, are you sure? Are you sure we should run this, my dude? As for what Dr. Kelly was doing during all of this, he hadn't even realized at first that he was Gilligan's supposed source, partly due to the description of him being in charge of drawing up that dossier, but also because the situation presented was so different to the one he had dictated, and can you blame him? Not at all. Not at all. This guy's way off script and way beyond what you said. Eventually, however, Dr. Kelly began to suspect that he was, in fact, Gilligan's supposed source, specifically after
Damn it, Gilligan!
before the Foreign Affairs Select Committee on the 19th of June and gave a recounting of a meeting with his sources that sounded remarkably reminiscent of their March meeting. Still, however, Dr. Kelly was convinced that there had to be more to the situation and another source involved somehow. After all, the information as described was so unlike that which he was provided that it couldn't be him that Gilligan was referencing. Right? Yeah, dude, Dr. Kelly in this situation, I'll be like, whoa, who is this other source? Because I didn't say about that. Just to be safe, however, when he started to have these suspicions, Dr. Kelly did what he believed was the right thing, and he told his employer, penning a detailed letter to them on the 30th of June, in which he laid out the full nitty-gritty detail of all his interactions with Gilligan. And if you want to know what he said, I'll spare you a giant extract and instead sum it up for you with just the following line. To quote, "The description of that meeting in small part matches my interaction with him, especially my personal evaluation of Iraq's capability, but the overall character is quite different." Yeah, Dr. Kelly is just completely a reasonable man, making reasonable assumptions and covering his ass just in case. He's probably still thinking, it's not me. This resulted in 2 meetings between Dr. Kelly and his bosses on the 3rd and the 7th of July to get to the bottom of the matter, and to be fair to them, they were actually remarkably understanding and open-minded about the whole affair, eventually deciding that there was indeed every likelihood that Dr. Kelly was the source that Gilligan couldn't shut up about, but that even despite that, no action was to be taken against him because ultimately he had approached the journalist in good faith and hadn't actually lied about anything or pushed any kind of agenda. They did, however, make sure to tell Dr. Kelly to prepare for his name to come out in the media, as ultimately, while they wouldn't be running off to spill the beans, the matter of containing the situation was totally out of their hands now, and that warning was nothing if not prescient. Wait, surely he's done this, like the reason he hasn't been named so far is because he went, it's like, is it called off the record? Where they're like, I don't want my name associated with this. And isn't part of journalistic ethics to protect your source? Like, so this journalist has gone wildly off book, but he could just be like, yeah, no, Dr. Kelly told me all of this. Dr. Kelly be like, bro, you're not supposed to say my name, and I didn't, dude. But as for how that happened, that ended up being a peculiar game of cat and mouse. Dr. Kelly's bosses had been true to their word and not told the media, but had told their superiors as per their professional obligations. So soon enough, Number 10 and everyone working within it were fully aware that Dr. Kelly was the insider that Gilligan had been constantly referring to for the last few months, and equally, so too was much of the media well aware, because it turns out that journalists just love to gossip. How about journalists? You don't gossip with each other about your sources. Especially for something this sensitive. Have some basic manners. Or ethics, whatever you want to call it. And so Dr. Kelly's name soon enough jumped from water cooler to water cooler until a choice number of them were fully aware of who he was. But which camp would be the first to break the news? Was fate to have Dr. Kelly's name enter the public consciousness via a front page headline or via a Downing Street press release? Oh my god, in that situation you'd be praying for that Downing Street press release. You'd be like, can you get ahead of it, please? Please, I did nothing wrong, and I just need you to get ahead of it. Please, I don't want my name to be on the front page of the Daily Mail as the guy. Well, Number 10 took a peculiar approach, as while they didn't outright release the information to the press, they did, via the Ministry of Defense, announce that they may confirm it should the media guess it correctly. What sort of strategy is that? It's a gloma I can neither confirm nor deny, but without the sense. Now, this is all just my opinion, folks, which, in full disclosure, may be somewhat tainted by the fact that I don't exactly hold Tony Blair's administration in the highest regards, just in case you somehow hadn't twigged that yet. Yeah, George is, I mean, I'm no, massive fan of Tony Blair, but this is a controversial statement. I do think Tony Blair gets an unreasonably hard time.
Yeah.
But what I did think happened was that the government was desperate to release Dr. Kelly's name for no other reason than the fact they were consumed with pure.
Yeah, Tony Blair, I'm not sure he did anything. That's the other thing. I don't think Tony Blair did anything. He just got the reputation of it. And so when whoever told whatever lie about Tony Blair or whatever, it got the whole world up in fucking hackles about him. He definitely got ousted, but I don't know what he did. I don't think he did anything. And that might be what the problem is I'm not sure he did anything at all. And that's the whole thing. They tend to be dead slots. I'm scared that it's all this cosmic joke, and I would like to say this. I really do feel like what I'm about to say. I'm loving what I'm about to say because I do have this cosmic fear. I think we're about to see a cosmic joke where for like 20 years we're gonna long and long and long for it to be normal again and boring again and all this, and then when it finally fucking is, that's when the war will start. And it's all this cosmic joke of like you can't relax, and then when you finally do, and the minute that you sit down, that's when the shot gets fired. And it's so annoying. I swear to God, that's how this timing works. It's so annoying. So we just like it's just this madhouse, and we pray for peace, and the minute that the peace comes, that's when the shot's fired. It's so annoying. I know how timing like this works.
Of the Iraq War narrative, and that's
so like the Trump madness, we've had like 8 years of it. It's so stupid. We're gonna have another fucking 4 years of it. It's gonna be like 12 years of it, and like it was way too long. And I don't know how good that was. Like that wasn't so good.
To lash out at anyone and everyone who had come into their crosshairs as a speed bump on the road to regime change in Iraq.
Oops.
But, while saying that, they were still rational enough to know that an all-singing and dancing neon-illuminated arrow pointing squarely at Dr. Kelly wouldn't exactly make for good optics. So instead they opted for a route that allowed them to claim plausible deniability when his name eventually came out. That's just my opinion. I mean, knows what the reality of the matter was. Yeah, it's like, you don't know what's going on in the halls of power, but it's not unreasonable, is it? Eventually, as per that self-imposed rule, the Ministry of Defense and later Downing Street would formally confirm Dr. Kelly's identity, specifically on the 9th of July. Now, I'm not going to say that the government was proactively nudging the still-in-the-dark members of the media towards guessing Dr. Kelly's identity in the hopes of being able to release it, but I will tell you that someone else implied it very heavily, specifically David Charter, who was serving as the Times' chief political correspondent back in 2003, and he said it by saying the following in an article titled, "Timeline, How David Kelly Was Named." Wait, how David Kelly was named is how you're naming him right now, my dude. Did I miss something? Dude, what? Can we respect people's privacy at all? Like, this guy came forward as an anonymous source. It's gonna make people not want to come forward as sources, guys. You're doing yourself a disservice. To quote the article, 1530. Tom Kelly, the Prime Minister's official spokesman, gives lobby journalists extra details about the official's identity. 16 to 1900 hours. Using the extra details, newspaper journalists came up with names, and Pam Tier, MOD head of news, confirms Dr. Kelly's name. End quote. As for what Dr. Kelly himself was doing during this time, he received a visit at his home from Nick Rufford, a journalist from the Sunday Times and friend who had known for 5 years. And on the 8th of July, and somehow, despite the fact that strictly speaking his name had neither been guessed nor confirmed yet, Rufford was quite adamant that Dr. Kelly's name was going to be published the following day, and that he and his wife should make themselves scarce before a pack of ravenous, headline-hungry vultures descended on his home to pick him apart. No sooner had he heeded this warning than he received a call from the Ministry of Defense, carried both the exact same warning and recommended course of action. Can't he just be like, guys, I didn't say it. The Gilligan guy went completely off script. Like, I'm a scientist. They were out the house in 15 minutes of Rufford's initial warning, bound for Cornwall. He managed to find a total of 3 days of peace and escapism from the ever-worsening political storm he sat at the eye of, before he was informed that he was being summoned to appear before the Intelligence and Security Foreign Affairs Select Committees. Select Committees, for those not in the know, being a small group of parliamentarians appointed to investigate, scrutinise and report on specific areas of government policy. This makes it sound like a summons, like a court summons, but it's not. I don't think I'm mistaken in saying that going to a select committee is a voluntary thing. Yo, ChatGPT, quick question here. In the UK, there are these things called select committees, right? And people can be summoned to attend a select committee where they get grilled on a bunch of questions. Is it mandatory to go? Like, if I'm summoned to one of these, do I have to show up?
Yes. In the UK, if you're summoned to appear before a select committee, it's generally expected that you attend. Select committees have the
You said generally expected. Do I have to go?
Yes. If you're formally summoned by a UK select committee, you are legally obligated to attend. Ignoring a formal summons
Wow, I was wrong. I thought these things were voluntary. Interesting. He appeared before the Foreign Affairs Committee on the 15th of July and spoke for a little over an hour, with his words being careful and considered, but also clearly anxious, as he spoke so quietly that the room's air conditioning had to be shut off so that he could actually be heard. And just to add to his indignity even further, the whole spectacle was also televised, clips of which video viewers will hopefully be able to see on the screen now. Yeah, it's also possible we might get copyright claims, so maybe they won't be included. Also, if you're in the audio, hearing the audio of this, you also won't be seeing any pictures. But just use your imagination to paint a picture of a scientist dude giving uncomfortable testimony of something that he's been dragged into but really shouldn't be. I'll spare you extensive quotes of what was said, as we're already well aware of most of it. It was mostly just Dr. Kelly standing his ground and affirming that he had not said what Gilligan had claimed he had. Something that is worth paying heed to, however, is his questioning regarding his interactions with Susan Watts, as he was asked if her quotes had come from their only face-to-face meeting in November 2002, to which he truthfully responded that, "I cannot believe that on that occasion I made that statement," as her comments had actually come from a phone discussion that had occurred only a couple of months earlier. As for what he thought of being dragged before the committee, I believe that is best surmised by what he said of Andrew McKinley, the MP who put the bulk of the questions to him. Kelly's daughter said he described him as an utter bastard. He then appeared the following day before the Intelligence and Security Committee. There he appeared much more composed and relaxed, and noticeably towed the government line on things, as for example, when asked to give his opinion on the quality of the September dossier, he said that it was, quote, "an accurate document. I think it is a fair reflection of the intelligence that was available, and it's presented in a very sober and factual way." Okay, seems like he's changing a tune a little bit. And with that done, Dr. Kelly headed back home for the last time. The death. Dr. Kelly's lifeless remains were found amidst the bracken of Harrowdown Hill, a small outcrop.
Oh no, they killed him?
In Southmore, Oxfordshire, at 9:20 a.m.
Oh my
July,
God.
2 days after he had spoken before the Intelligence and Select Committee.
What
The
is
alarm had
wrong
first been
with these
sounded at
people?
11:40 the night before, when Dr. Kelly had failed to return from a walk he had embarked on at a little after
Who
3
killed
p.m.
this
itself
guy?
followed a
Is
period
it
of
the
extensive
monarchy?
searching by Dr. Kelly's family, as his youngest daughter had
No,
taken
it's-
it upon herself
it's-
to investigate
it's
at
the
6
deep
p.m.,
state.
beginning with checking.
It's gonna be a conglomerate with the deep state and a couple of businessmen. I think it's insane. It's gonna be like a syndicate, some kind of syndicate. It's insane. It's like what's going on? There's all this weird shit that just heralds the end times. It's weird. Like our syndicates are fighting and stuff. It's nuts.
Family, as his youngest daughter had taken it upon herself to investigate at 6 p.m.
Who killed this
with checking
guy?
out all of
What?
his usual walking routes on foot, and eventually taking her car to search a wider area no later than 6:30 p.m. And she was eventually joined by Dr. Kelly's eldest daughter and his wife. When the police were eventually called, however, they wasted no time in attending the scene, as 3 officers arrived within 15 minutes and immediately conducted an initial search of Dr. Kelly's home and garden. Finding no sign of him, they called for support and began fanning out, eventually being joined by a search and rescue helicopter that was decked out with the latest and greatest thermal imaging equipment at around 1 a.m. This would then be supplemented by volunteers as time went on, as the modest resources the police had on the book simply proved incapable of searching the vast countryside that surrounded Southmore at anything like an agreeable pace, and it would be one of those people who would eventually find him. Notably, however, accounts of the position in which he was found
Why would
differed
they
from
kill
person
this
to
guy?
person,
That's
with
insane.
the 2 that actually discovered him, claiming that
What
he
could
was
they
both,
possibly
quote,
gain
at
from
the
this?
base
What
of
could
the
this
tree,
guy- how much
almost
power could
his
this guy
head and
have to
shoulders
threaten
just slumped back
It's
against
stupid.
the tree and, quote, sitting with his back up against a tree. There is no clarity to be found in the opinions of the professionals who attended the scene either, as one of the first officers to do so claimed that he was laying on his back. The body was laying on its back by a large tree, the head towards the
Oh, I
trunk
have
of the
3
tree.
stacks of
And
ice
the pathologist
clusters.
who was called to conduct a thorough examination of the scene, a man called Nicholas Hunt, who we'll be meeting again in the coming chapters, reporting that, quote, his head was quite close to the branches and so forth, but not actually over the tree. But just how did he die? That is the burning question. And what would you know it, his death turned out to be such a big deal that the government dedicated a whole inquiry to getting to the bottom of the matter. So let's bring this chapter to a close, move on, and have a look at the facts as they saw them. So far, I'm not very suspicious. I'm like, yeah, it's a bit weird that people describe his body as being in sort of different ways, but also kind of similar ways. So maybe it moved, maybe someone moved him, maybe people are just describing the same thing differently. No suspicion for murder so far. Definitely, I'd be inclined to suicide. Like, his life suddenly became enormously stressful. He was just a quiet scientist going about his nice life, and suddenly he's in the press, and he's in front of select committees, and that's got to be super stressful for someone who's not used to a high-stress situation. Chapter 4.
So that was his guess? Wait, is that what the guess... Was that your guess? My guess was... Let's see what he says.
To getting to the bottom of the matter. So let's bring this chapter to a close, move on, and have a look at the facts as they saw them. So far, I'm not very suspicious.
So far, I'm not very suspicious.
I'm like, yeah, it's a bit weird that people just...
It's weird that it happened, because obviously there's something. But I'm not suspicious of the government on this one yet. I'm guessing it's some kind of syndicate. I mean, I said what I thought.
Describe his body as being in sort of different ways, but also kind of similar ways. So maybe it moved, maybe someone moved him, maybe people are just describing the same thing differently. No suspicion for murder so far. Definitely, I'd be inclined to suicide. Like, his life suddenly became enormously stressful. He was just a quiet scientist going about his nice life, and suddenly he's in the press, and he's in front of select committees, and that's got to be super stressful for someone who's not used to a high-stress situation.
I like it.
Chapter 4.
Yep.
The official narrative. We have a lot of public inquiries in the UK, which is to say official reviews or investigations conducted by a government-appointed panel to examine specific events, issues, or incidents of significant public concern. The specific one of interest to us, however, is the Hutton Inquiry, which, because we're really inventive when it comes to naming stuff, took its name from the fella who led it. Incidentally, I've heard of the Hutton Inquiry. Okay. Incidentally, he also has the most unfortunate tongue twister of a name and title combination ever recorded in human history, that being Brian Hutton, Baron Hutton. No way. Oh, okay, so this is like an inherited one. So he's like a baron, and his name is Brian. He got the job because he was then serving as Lord of Appeal in Ordinary, which translated from Downton Abbey English into actual English just meant that he was one of the most up-there judges in the land. Oh, okay, so maybe he got made a baron. Can you be made a baron? Yo, ChatGPT, can you be made a baron in the UK? Like, if you're like a top judge or whatever, or is it an inherited title? Specifically, I'm looking at Brian Hutton, who was Baron Hutton.
Yes, you can be.
Uh-oh.
This is often granted to individuals for their achievements or service.
Okay, so maybe he was given this. The inquiry ran from August 2003 through to January 2004 and surmised its findings in the 337-page Hutton report, which, because I hate myself, I read all of. As for what it ended up concluding, here is it straight from the horse's mouth, quote, "In the light of the evidence which I have heard, I am satisfied that Dr. Kelly took his own life in the wood at Harrowdown Hill at a time between 4:15 p.m. on July the 17th and 1:15 a.m. on the 18th of July 2003, and that the principal cause of death was bleeding from incised wounds to the left wrist, which Dr. Kelly inflicted on himself with the knife found beside his body. It is probable that the ingestion of an excess amount of coproximal tablets, coupled with apparently clinically silent coronary artery disease, would have both played a part in bringing about death more certainly and more rapidly than would otherwise been the case. Accordingly, the causes of death are 1A, hemorrhage, 1B, incised wounds to the left wrist, 2, coproximal ingestion, and coronary artery atherosclerosis."
Nope, it's the same old sign. That's their sign. They slice your wrists and they leave you to die with some pills near a tub. Happens all the time. Happened to Danny Casolaro. It is that now that sounds like deep state. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know these people. I don't like making conjecture. I really don't know. I'm telling you what it sounds like. I have no fucking idea. I have no clue. Why would they whack this guy? It seems fucking weird.
Wrist, 2, coproximal ingestion, and coronary artery atherosclerosis. Keen to not just have us take his word for it, however, the report also outlines the evidence that was used to reach that conclusion. For example, on the matter of the wrist wound, it says the following, quoting, The orientation and arrangement of the wounds over the left wrist are typical of self-inflicted injury. Also typical of this was the presence of small so-called tentative or hesitation marks. The fact that his watch appeared to have been removed deliberately in order to facilitate access to the wrist. The removal of the watch in that way, and indeed the removal of the spectacles, are features pointing towards this being an act of self-harm. It also gives information on the knife used to do it. Quote, lying next to that was a pruning knife or gardener's knife. The make was a Sandvig knife. It was one with a little hook or lip toward the tip of the blade. It's a fairly standard gardener's type knife. There were bloodstains on the knife over both the handle and the blade. It also definitively links it to Dr. Kelly. Quote, the knife found beside the body was a knife which Dr. Kelly had owned since boyhood and which he kept in a desk in his study, but which was found to be missing from his desk after his death. Well, it does sound very much like, I know this is the official narrative, and I'm sure we're going to get into the unofficial conspiratorial narrative a little bit later, but it does seem like a very straightforward suicide, doesn't it? But then again, that's what they want you to think. Similarly, the report also fleshes out its explanation of Dr. Kelly's excessive taking of coproximal. For example, quoting, he was wearing a green barber-type wax jacket, and the zip and the buttons at the front had been undone. Within the bellows pocket, on the lower part of the jacket, there was a mobile telephone and a pair of bifocal spectacles. There was a key fob, and perhaps more significantly, a total of 3 blister packs of a drug called coproximal. Each of those packs would have originally contained 10 tablets, a total of 30 potentially available. And how many tablets were left in the packs? In those packs, there was 1 left. It's all, oh, okay, so they know it because it was inside his body. From there, it actually goes on to evidence that he had actually taken them by saying the following. His face appeared, firstly, rather pale, but there was also what looked like vomit running down from the right corner of his mouth and also from the left corner of his mouth and streaking the face. It suggested that he had tried to vomit whilst he was lying on his back and it had trickled down. Given the finding of blister packs of coproximal tablets within the coat pocket and the vomitus around the ground, it is entirely reasonable supposition that he may have consumed a quantity of these tablets either on the way to or at the scene itself. Which, again, makes complete sense for a suicide, because I think it's a thing that if men attempt suicide, they're much more likely to complete it, right? Which, in this case, doubling it up, like for 2 ways to kill yourself, makes a ton of sense. That just leaves the heart condition as the final contribution to Dr. Kelly's death, in regards to which it says the following, quote, it was noted that he had a significant degree of coronary artery disease, and this may have played some small part in the rapidity of death, but not the major part in the cause of death. As for who was to blame for it all, the report wastes no time in making its opinions on the matter perfectly clear, saying the following in Chapter 1, quote, I also consider it to be important to state that none of those persons was at fault in not contemplating that Dr. Kelly might take his own life. Whatever pressures and strains Dr. Kelly was subjected to by the decisions and actions taken in the weeks before his death, I am satisfied that no one realized or should have realized that those pressures and strains might drive him to take his own life or contribute to his decision to do so. Yeah, which I think is, you can't be constantly worried about how much stress people can take, because you're not them and you don't know. I think it's fair to be like, you can assume they can bear the amount of stress that a reasonable person could. And do I think it's reasonable to kill yourself because of this? No. But that doesn't mean that he didn't because of this. In other words, no one was to blame besides Dr. Kelly himself as far as the report believes. Despite that, however, the report does not try to pretend as though he was not subjected to the most stressing of pressures from various government agencies, as, for example, it says the following about the Ministry of Defense in Chapter 9, quote, I consider that once the decision had been taken on July the 8th to issue the statement, the MOD was at fault and is to be criticized for not informing Dr. Kelly that its press office would confirm his name if a journalist suggested it. It must have been a great shock and very upsetting for him. Also called out is Downing Street, as again in Chapter 9 the following is said, quoting again, did the government behave in a way which was dishonourable or underhand or duplicitous in revealing Dr. Kelly's name to the media? I conclude that the government did not behave in a way which was dishonourable or underhand or duplicitous in revealing Dr. Kelly's name to the media. The government was also at fault in not having set up a procedure whereby Dr. Kelly would be informed immediately his name had been confirmed to the press. However, I do not find that this fault contributed directly to Dr. Kelly's death. I agree. If that's what happens, it's like, should they have told him ahead of time, like, and been more on top of it? Yes. Does that make it them responsible for him killing himself? No. And then, that's pretty much it. Dr. Kelly was overcome with stress as a result of his unwanted place in the media spotlight, and while overcome by that stress, deemed that the only path to finding peace lay in removing himself from our mortal plane, an end which he brought about primarily via a knife and secondarily with an ungodly large dose of coproximal, with the whole process receiving a helping nudge along the way from a heart condition. And at face value, then, we have no reason to doubt the Hutton report, do we, folks? I mean, after all, he was found with a knife wound beside a knife that was provably his, no less, and not only was he found with a sufficiently large amount of coproximal blisters, but he also had vomit stains on his beard to match. So, what's the problem? Well, all I can say in answer to that, folks, is strap in, because the next chapter, we're going to pick apart all the holes in that version of events, and it gets wild. Alright, I'm ready. Like, so far, I'm like, Hutton report, this seems legit. I agree. So, what is happening? Chapter 5. Something's not right. To say that the British media received Dr. Kelly's death rather badly would be quite the understatement. In the days following his death, headlines such as these were printed up and down the land. "Time to pack your bags, Mr. Campbell," which was plastered on the front page of the Wolverhampton Express and Star. "Shaken Blair faces calls to quit over spin suicide," from Sunday Independent, and "Blair must resign over Kelly death," which was printed by the Shropshire Star. But angry though these headlines were, they were ones penned very much in the immediate aftermath of his death, before the journalistic class really had time to sit down and think events over, and the more time rolled ever on, the more they did exactly that, and some really uncomfortable questions and notions started to appear on the front covers. Questions like, was Kelly murdered, from the London Evening Standard on the 27th of January 2004, and, quote, "are doubts about Dr. Kelly's suicide," from The Guardian on the same date. Such headlines, while certainly not universal across all publications, or even all of the journalists from within the outlet that sent them to print, were indicative of a growing sentiment within the wider populace of the UK, that being that the official narrative of Kelly's death was in fact complete hokum. From both of those headlines, which I chose very specifically, we also see the range of opinions of the doubters. For example, on the softer side of things, we have the Guardian headline, which merely suggests that something wasn't right with the official story and doesn't explicitly ascribe it to foul play. And then on the firmer side, we have the London Evening Standard, which, while it doesn't come right out and say, yes, he was killed, I reckon, it floats the notion that he was as something that should be properly explored and considered. I prefer the Guardian headline. It's like, it's very much more measured and less about getting people to buy the paper and more about reporting facts, which is nice. I like that in a newspaper. You may be surprised to hear too that the Brits that were starting to entertain this notion in sufficient quantity as to make it profitable for the newspapers to run with weren't all just tinfoil hat wearers hiding in the deepest, darkest corners of the nascent World Wide Web. But make no mistake, these sorts absolutely did exist, but they were far from unique in their beliefs, because actually, a lot of serious people came forward and publicly questioned that official narrative. There was, for example, Doctors David Halpin, Stephen Frost, and Searle Sennett, who were all incredibly experienced medical professionals specializing in trauma and orthopedic surgery, diagnostic radiology, and anesthesiology, respectively. It had actually been them who had sparked that Guardian article, as they had penned a letter to the newspaper that read as follows, and we'll quote here. "As specialist medical professionals, we do not consider the evidence given at the Hutton inquiry has demonstrated that Dr. Kelly committed suicide. We dispute that Dr. Kelly could have died from hemorrhage or from coproximal ingestion or from both. The coroner, Nicholas Gardiner, has spoken recently of resuming the inquest into his death. If it reopens, as in our opinion it should, a clear need exists to scrutinise more closely Dr. Hunt's conclusions as to the cause of death." And they were just the tip of the spear, because as 2004 rolled on, ever more letters from legit medical big brains would find their way to, and subsequently be published in, The Guardian, with other examples including Questions Over Kelly, which was penned in December by a cohort that included Doctors Chris Burns-Cox and John Skerr, both of them specialists in vascular surgery. It read as follows, quoting, "Dr. David Kelly is the first British citizen whose sudden, unexpected and violent death has been denied an inquest. 3 weeks after Dr. Kelly's body was found, Lord Falconer ordered that the inquest into his death be adjourned indefinitely and subsumed into a public inquiry by invoking Section 17A of the Coroners Act 1988. The law requires a verdict of suicide to be proved beyond all reasonable doubt. Why should Dr. Kelly's death receive less scrutiny than any other sudden, unexpected and violent death? As things stand, suicide has not been proved, and we still do not know how he died." suicide. Come the close of 2004, 11 of these legitimate wrinkle brains have come together to form the Kelly Investigation Group, a loose formal association that lobbied for exactly what it said on the tin. As they saw it, proper investigation into the true fate of Dr. Kelly. 10 of them were medical experts, with that surplus digit coming in from someone most interesting, Dr. Michael Powers QC, who had a particular expertise in all matters coronial. After they founded that, there's a note here from George, which says, for our overseas viewers who have absolutely no idea what the fuck a QC is, and that's why it's important detail to take note of, QC refers to Queen's Counsel, which, to simplify it quite a bit, is basically just a barrister who is really, really good at their job, so good that the Queen has given them her personal rubber stamp of approval. It's the ultimate bit of LinkedIn fodder for a barrister, and as a result, it allows them to send out eye-wateringly large invoices, and thus you'll typically only find them taking on the most complex and best-funded cases. So, the fact that someone with those letters after his name, who had also earned said letters while working as a death lawyer, had thrown their weight behind the effort was a big deal to say the least. Yeah, it's not messing around. After they founded the group, these 11 people and their insides were all that the media could talk about for a while, hence the second batch of more openly doubtful and suspicious articles that I mentioned earlier on. So, now that we've established that some really qualified sorts endorsed the idea that all was not as it seemed with Dr. Kelly's death, let's start diving in to the real meat of this chapter, the actual evidence for such claims, beyond that little bit I've already mentioned in passing anyway. And to begin, let's circle back to Halpin, Frost, and Sennett's article from The Guardian. Quote, our doubts about Dr. Kelly's suicide. In it, sandwiched in the middle of the extract we looked at earlier, is the following quote. The forensic pathologist at the Hutton inquiry concluded that Dr. Kelly bled to death from a self-inflicted wound to his left wrist. We view this as highly improbable. Arteries in the wrist are of matchstick thickness, and severing them does not lead to life-threatening blood loss. Dr. Hunt stated that the only artery that had been cut, the ulnar artery, had been completely transected. Complete transection causes the artery to quickly retract and close down, and this promotes clotting of the blood. Straight away then, in their collective expert opinion anyway, Dr. Kelly's sole external wound was beyond unlikely to cause death, which is interesting. These claims are further supported by British government statistics, which say that death through such methods is rare indeed. Exactly how rare, you ask? Well, according to Karen Dunnell, the former head of Government Statistical Service, a grand total of 6 people died from injury to the ulnar artery between 1997 and 2004. Simon didn't misspeak there either. Not 600, not 60, 6. And all of those 6 weren't even intentional either, with the number being made up of 3 intentional acts, 2 accidents, and 1 in which it couldn't be determined. Further still, while the notion is tragically prolific, I would argue that thanks to the media, successfully killing yourself via cutting is actually a remarkably rare way to successfully do such things. For example, in 2003 alone, there were 4,659 instances of suicide, including injuries of undetermined intent, and of that number, a whole 126 of them were done with sharp things just off the hand. We can also consider a 1998 report penned by Jeffrey McKee titled Lethal versus Non-Lethal Suicide Attempts in Jail. And do note that in this article, McKee analysed suicide attempts from all jails in South Carolina between the years 1985 and 1994 and discovered that, exactly in line with what we saw from the British government statistics, the way that Dr. Kelly supposedly did it was again both rare and very unsuccessful, with 28.7 of the attempts being with that method, and from the 275 attempts that were successful overall, only 1 of them was done that way. Okay, so it's just really a weird way to kill yourself. With all of that, then, we have the first arrow in our argumentative quiver, that Dr. Kelly supposedly died from a wound that is not only unlikely to be inflicted on oneself in the first place, but that is even less likely to be fatal when it is. But this doesn't necessarily support the fact that he was murdered, because if some shady government organization is gonna go and murder him, they will know that this is not a particularly effective way to murder someone, more likely than Dr. Kelly is to know that it's an ineffective way to commit suicide, typically. Right? But that, in and of itself, would be a pretty argument, as after all, something being highly improbable or beyond unlikely does not mean that it's not possible, period. And so the chance would always persist that he simply succumbed to a statistical improbability at the worst possible time for the government. We need more if we're really to progress our speculation. And what would you know it? We've still got plenty of other evidence to consider. Excellent, because I'm definitely not persuaded yet. For example, there's also the matter of his blood loss, or rather a lack thereof. Halpin, Frost, and Sennett sum this up nicely for us in the letter that they penned to The Guardian, quote, "The ambulance team reported that the quantity of blood at the scene was minimal and surprisingly small. It is difficult to lose significant amounts of blood at a pressure below 50 to 60 systolic in a subject who is compensating by vasoconstricting. To have died from hemorrhage, Dr. Kelly would have had to lose about 5 pints of blood. It is unlikely that he would have lost more than a pint." I mean, again, yes, but they didn't say that this was what killed him. They said it was a combination of this, so maybe a pint, a combination of the coproximal, and the underlying heart condition. But while they were just making informed guesstimates, when they posited that claim, as they hadn't actually seen the scene of death, we don't have to. But while they were just making informed guesstimates when they posited that claim, as they hadn't actually seen the scene of his death, we don't have to, because the responding paramedics have actually come out to speak about the scene that they were met with over the years, and yes, he definitely didn't lose 5 pints of blood, that's for sure. As for what they did see, here is it straight from the mouth of Vanessa Hunt, one of the aforementioned paramedics, taken from an interview she gave to The Observer in December 2004, to quote, "There wasn't a puddle of blood around. There was a little bit of blood on the nettles to the left of his left arm, but there was no real blood on the body or the shirt. The only other bit of blood I saw was on his clothing. It was the size of a 50p piece, right above the right knee of his trousers. When somebody cuts an artery, whether accidentally or intentionally, the blood pumps everywhere. I just think it's incredibly unlikely that he died from the wrist wound we saw. I also didn't see any blood on his right hand." The quote ends. And just in case you suspect Miss Hunt might be misremembering the situation, which no doubt was incredibly stressful for her, would it be incredibly stressful for her though? She's a paramedic. Like, she's gonna see like this all the time. Her testimony was corroborated by Dave Bartlett, the other paramedic, who also attended that interview and again reported no blood stains on Dr. Kelly's clothes, save for a small 1-inch stain over his right knee. Doesn't exactly sound like 5 pints worth, does it? Nope. I agree though. I think there weren't. The whole quantity of blood not being right thing was also backed up by Dr. Bill McQuillan, a retired consultant at Edinburgh's Royal Infirmary who headed a clinic on peripheral nerve injury for over 20 years. He said the following when speaking to the Daily Express on the matter, to quote him, "Arterial bleeding is quite dramatic. In surgery, you have to divide small arteries from time to time, and blood sprays out like it's a kid's water pistol. What you see is a pump action with each beat of the heart, and I have known it to hit the ceiling. If the bleeding was as small as alleged, that is astonishing." The blood situation gets even weirder still, however, because Roy Green, a forensic biologist who testified at the Hutton inquiry and didn't doubt the official narrative, suggested that Dr. Kelly might have suffered what he dubbed as arterial rain, i.e. blood escaping the body so quickly that it just shoots off and lands amid the surrounding environment, thus not leaving too great a stain on the clothing. Well, I'm sure they poked around and tried to find some blood, no? There's a glaring problem with this idea, however. Where was the blood then? Because while the police did record some stains around Dr. Kelly's remains and notably failed to give us any indication on exactly how much there was, Vanessa Hunt specifically said that there were no signs of spray or pumps everywhere. So, you can get your head around what the scene should have looked like. Allow me to once again give you the words of Ms. Hunt, because she spoke on the matter during her and Dave's interview with The Observer. Specifically, after noting that she had attended dozens of suicide attempts over the years, she went on to say the following, quote, "That was like a slaughterhouse. Just think what it would be like with 5 or 6 pints of milk splashed everywhere. So not only did he have an injury that one wouldn't normally expect to go squirty, even if he had, by some accursed miracle, managed to wound himself in a manner that would bring about such a bodily..."
Get something to drink, I'll be right back. Canada Dry.
response, it appears there just wasn't the blood around to suggest that that had happened. Interesting. What certainly doesn't help to clear the situation up at all is the testimony of Nicholas Hunt, the inquiry's go-to pathologist, as he testified that he believed that the injuries to Dr. Kelly's wrist had been inflicted mere minutes before his death, specifically citing what he dubbed a well-developed vital reaction, i.e. the body's response to physical damage, which in Dr. Kelly's instance would be reddening and swelling all around the injured wrist. The issue there is with the word minutes. Don't forget, we know from Halpin, Frost and Sennett that the fatal amount of blood to lose is give or take 5 pints in a few minutes, from a small wound to the ulnar artery. That's a lot of blood leaving via a small wound in not a lot of time. But don't worry, this isn't just a repeat of the where's the blood arguments. Instead, to fully understand why this claim is problematic, we must turn to Halpin, because when later speaking with a researcher on the matter of this claim, he said that even if you were to sever the most effective artery in the body, i.e. the one that will allow the greatest quantity of blood to escape in the fastest amount of time, which incidentally is around the groin, I kind of assumed it would be in the neck, but there we go, it would still take over 30 minutes to die, and Hunt was suggesting that Dr. Kelly died in mere minutes. But Halpin wasn't having it. He flatly believed that Hunt's claim was a big old load of bollocks and went straight for the proverbial jugular with his rebuttal, saying that, quote, surgeons know rather more about arteries than pathologists do. A scathing comment indeed from Halpin, although I can't help but get a bit disappointed that he didn't go for the obvious jab of rhyming Hunt's name with a certain other word. No, because he's a respectable man. He's not going to drop the C word in like an official thing. The implications of this are quite ominous then, because using the logic presented by the naysayers, either Dr. Kelly didn't lose that much blood, which would be consistent with his cut to the ulnar artery and thus must have died by other means, or he did lose the amount of blood somewhere else, with his body later being moved to where it was found. When they do a post-op, obvious word that's totally escaped, autopsy, where they do I can't remember the word autopsy. When they do an autopsy, aren't they going to weigh him and work how much blood's inside, how much blood's missing, that kind of thing? That seems like a pretty obvious thing to do, no? Either way, the implication remains the same. Another party was involved. Why? Wait, I don't know if the implication is that. Is it? I mean, it just means, doesn't it imply that he could have just died from something else? There doesn't need to be another party involved. He could have died from the coproximal or the heart condition. Oh, and another little thing to tell you about the knife. It didn't have his fingerprints on. I repeat, it didn't have his fingerprints on it. And if you've leapt to the logical assumption of assuming that Dr. Kelly must have been wearing gloves when he supposedly did the act, such assumptions, while certainly understandable, are ultimately incorrect, because not only were Dr. Kelly's remains not wearing gloves, but none were recovered from the scene at all. And speaking of things that didn't have fingerprints on them, let's now move on to talk about the 29 coproximal tablets he supposedly took, because yes, you've guessed it, the blister packs that were once brimming with tablets didn't have a single trace of his fingerprints on them either. That is definitely weird. That's weird. There's more peculiarities to take note of when it comes to the tablets, and to begin explaining it properly, let me turn once again to the words of Halpin, Frost and Sennett, because in their letter to The Guardian, they said the following, quoting again, they could not show that Dr. Kelly had ingested the 29 tablets said to be missing from the packets found. Only a fifth of one tablet was found in his stomach. Although levels of coproximal in the blood were higher than the therapeutic levels, the blood level of each of the drug's 2 components was less than a third of what would normally be found in a fatal overdose. Interesting claims indeed, because as per the Hutton inquiry, if you recall, what is meant to have happened is that Dr. Kelly took 3 blister packs of coproximal from his home. Inside of each was 10 tablets, with active ingredients of 325 milligrams of paracetamol and 32.5 milligrams of dextropropoxyphene, incidentally, and then taken up to 29 of them before he did what he did with the knife, as that is how many blisters had been opened and popped, as it were. At face value, this seems above board, because the police uncovered that the tablets found on Dr. Kelly's body came from the same batch as the ones that his wife had at home for treating her arthritis, although it does have to be said that 1.6 million boxes were produced as part of this batch, so the claim that he took them from home is arguably built on shaky grounds nonetheless. Yeah, but also, yeah, it's a coincidence. But also it's quite the coincidence if, I mean, I think it was the packs from home. Where things start to get peculiar, however, is with the fact that empty blister packs were found in Dr. Kelly's jacket pocket, having been neatly put back into their box. While certainly handy for drawing up quick and expedient, yes, he probably took these, didn't he? Thanks for leaving one we can chemically test at the lab, doc, type conclusions. Isn't it weird that he'd go to such lengths to be neat and tidy, given what he was about to supposedly do? Again, I'm I don't think so. I think people are creatures of habit, and, you know, if you decide you're going to kill yourself one day, it doesn't mean you're not going to make your bed if you've made your bed for the last however many years of your life. You just go through your routine, don't you? Of course, there is a myriad of reasons why this could be the case. He could have simply been habitually neat and tidy, and so even with the gravity of his intentions, muscle memory and/or a base-level sense of dignity made him neatly return them to his pocket, to just give one example. But you have to admit, given the fact that his blood had less than a third of the lethal overdose of coproximal in it, it certainly looks peculiar, doesn't it? Yeah, the lack of stuff in his blood is way more suspicious than him just putting away the boxes neatly. Then there's the fact that his stomach only contained the equivalent of 20% of a tablet in it during his autopsy. Even considering the fact that some of the tablets will have been digested and metabolized, this just isn't adding up. I mean, 28.5 tablets gone from his stomach in the half hour it had taken him to bleed out, according to Halpin? No chance. To be fair though, as we mentioned in the last chapter, some vomit stains were indeed noted as if being found around his face when he was discovered. If only the police had thought to test this vomit and not just note it, wipe it off, and then never question it or bring it up again. Yeah, fair. Also, I think that's a fairly reasonable explanation for why there's not enough coproximal in his blood, because his body rejected it and he throws it up. And he has some of it in his blood, he loses some blood through the knife wound, and he has a heart condition. It's all three things coming together to kill him. Not enough to kill him, each one individually, enough to kill him together. And if that brief mention of there being some vomit as you go and breathe a big sigh of relief as you remove your tinfoil hat to say to yourself, oh thank God there's the answer, we must have just vomited it out, allow me to firmly ram it back on your head with the following bit of information. The fact that Alexander Allen, the Hutton Inquiry's go-to forensic toxicologist, said that although the levels of coproximal in Dr. Kelly's blood were indeed higher than normal therapeutic levels, it is generally accepted that the concentrations of a drug in the blood can increase by as much as 10 times after death. So actually, it's perfectly possible that he may have only taken 3.3% of the lethal dosage. Wait, how's that work? Is that just because it can enter the blood, but the body is dead, so it's not processing it? And just in case you're not mind-fucked enough yet, here's something else to consider. Mike Peterson, a US Army veteran who had among Dr. Kelly's closest friends and confidants since 1999, had said in press interviews that he hated taking tablets and would typically only ever do so if it was something really, really important, and even then he had to pucker himself up and force himself. And yet, despite this, the official story persists that he took the time to put 29 of them down his throat before doing what he did, and thus willingly submitted himself to yet another grossly unpleasant act on his way out. Again, absolutely possible, because after all, people don't exactly tend to be level-headed and straight-thinking when they're killing themselves, but I certainly don't think it's unwarranted to say that a sense of skepticism is deserved. No, I think a healthy sense of skepticism is deserved here, but I also think he could totally just take those tablets. And in making my next point, folks, let me begin by asking you a question. How much water do you think one would consume in the process of downing 29 tablets? 1 tablet per sip, I'd say half a litre. Half a litre seems like a reasonable amount. If you don't have a clue, worry not. I did some rough science myself and figured out that it takes me a minimum of 50 mils of water to get a standard issue supermarket ibuprofen down my throat. That feels like a lot. I could do it with a sip or just nothing at all, just with spit. Just like put the ibuprofen in and swallow. I don't think it's that much water. So by that logic, it would take me, and it stands to reason, basically anyone else for that matter, just shy of 1.5 litres of water to take 29 tablets. No, I wouldn't need 1.5 litres of water to take 29 tablets. No. I take a few different medications in the morning.
Me too.
I think there's maybe 4 or 5 little pills. 5, yep. And I take a sip of water. Boom, done. Easy. Yep. And they're little sips, both by the evidence of my own eyes and according to Google, so a more accurate number could be greater still. And if I take little sips, boy, Dr. Kelly must have swallowed but a pipette full of water when taking his tablets, because the only bottle found anywhere near his remains was 500 mils in size, and it was barely half finished. There's no doubt in my mind that I could take 29 tablets with 250 mils of water. I'd take 2 at a time, maybe 3 at a time, knock them back, 10 sips, boom, 250 mils. I don't think that's a big issue. Oh, and remember when I said that there was some vomit stains around his mouth when he was found? Well, according to a journal article I flicked through titled Coproximal and Preventing the Continuing Toll of Overdose Suicides, again, it takes a few hours for vomiting to begin, and when it begins, there is a lot of it. This just isn't adding up, either in time frame or in the amount of vomit, unless of course the vomiting just began as he drew his last mortal breath. Never say never, I guess. I mean, it's also possible that he was on this walk and just sipping and taking the tablets as he goes, and throwing up maybe somewhere on his walk, something like that. I mean, I'm just an Occam's razor guy. I'm not looking for a conspiracy. I'm actively trying to be like, how does this conspiracy fall apart? And I think it's kind of falling apart for me. I don't think it's as locked in. It's not often that I'm on a completely different separate page from my writers, but George and I are kind of on a different page today. Then we have the matter of Dr. Kelly's supposed heart condition. This doesn't raise eyebrows quite as furiously as the questions over the lack of blood or the co-proximal peculiarities, but it's certainly still of note. The doubt first comes when you heed the testimony of Dr. Malcolm Warner, Dr. Kelly's own GP, who was summoned to give evidence at the Hutton inquiry. While there, he was asked a simple question, namely, were you aware of any serious medical condition from which Dr. Kelly suffered? To this, he simply answered, no. Do note, however, that Dr. Kelly hadn't actually been to see Warner since 1999, a whole 4 years before his death. This could be taken in two ways. Firstly, that the heart condition must have simply developed after then, and thus never found its way to both Warner's attention and his medical records. And secondly, that the heart condition may never have existed, or at least been grossly over-exaggerated, because why wouldn't he go and see his doctor over it if it existed and was in any way bad? Well, because not all conditions are... like, they can be bad enough to kill you, but you might not know you have them. I have personal experience with this. Like, someone who, a relation of mine, just suddenly died. And then we found out, oh, they had this condition. And just didn't know. And then they just died. And because it can be a serious condition, but it kind of it might not manifest. And here's a little extra tidbit of information that may coax you towards the second interpretation. The fact that on the 8th of July 2003, not even 10 days before his death, he had undergone a Ministry of Defense medical in preparation for another work trip to Iraq, and this medical revealed no heart problems of any kind and greenlit him to go, and further to that, said that his general state of health was good. I mean... sure, but a medical can mean a lot of different things. Like, maybe that medical didn't include an EKG, for example, like the heart measuring thing. Maybe it did. Maybe the doctor didn't spot it. Maybe because it was this underlying condition, right, that they only found when they cut him open. And again, while this isn't exactly smoking gun evidence, the fact that his supposed heart condition managed to evade the attention of both his GP and the Ministry of Defense med team is yet another weird thing to note that doesn't seem quite right. Sure, but doctors miss things, it happens. And if one doctor misses it, the odds of another doctor missing it are going to be higher because the first doctor missed it, so it's probably harder to spot. Some also raise concerns over the choice of Nicholas Hunt as the go-to pathologist, as back when Dr. Kelly met his untimely end, there were a total of 43 people on the Home Office Register of Forensic Pathologists. In other words, the people that the state determined to be sufficiently experienced to be able to act as proper arbiters in cases of unknown or violent death. He was also one of the newest additions to the list, having only been added in 2001. This meant that while Hunt was without a doubt a hell of a pathologist to be sure, there were ultimately far more experienced ones than he, with some of them even having been on the register since 1978. And sure, but another way that you could interpret this as he's new to the register, so he's going to do a more thorough job rather than someone who's been on it for like 30 years and is just like, yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, experience, I personally would maybe value more. But the thoroughness of a new doctor being added to this is also he's gonna spot things. And it's this detail that some say makes the situation peculiar, because for a death as high profile, and let's be frank, as catastrophically disastrous public relations-wise as Dr. Kelly's, why wouldn't they want the best of the best on it, and why only one of them? Lest the final report be full of whoops-a-daisies that say, oh, I don't know, led to shitloads of people believing that Dr. Kelly had been murdered. George and I are on a really different page on this one. I just think this is standard government incompetence. Like, government's just not being able to do very well, because, I mean, they're kind of famous for it, aren't they? So, I just think they were like, yeah, okay, that guy. And they didn't think much of it. I think that it's more likely to be incompetence than conspiracy. Interesting indeed, but as a side note, I'd like to bring up the fact that regardless of whether or not Hunt was involved in some kind of state murder/cover-up conspiracy, I happen to think that he's a colossal helmet. Okay, and that's because of two articles I discovered while researching. Helmet, by the way, unless I'm mistaken, George is meaning he's a bellend, which means he's a bit of a tit. One from the Daily Mail titled Kelly Doctor Caution for Breaking General Medical Council Rules, New Cloud Over Pathologist, and another one in the Western Mail and Echo, now Wales Online, titled Pictures of Mutilated Servicemen Shown to Travel Agents. What the is going on? What is this? In short, Hunt was the pathologist who conducted the autopsies, when said dead soldiers were returned to the UK, and he then decided to flash pictures of what was left of them after both he and the Iraqi insurgency had gotten their knives into them, about as part of some sort of seminar or something, or without the consent and knowledge of their surviving family. As for who they were, because I think they deserve a mention and actually dignified pictures being put on screen, sorry audio listeners, that'd be Lance Corporal Tom Keyes, Corporal Simon Miller, and Sergeant Simon Hamilton Jewell. With that, allow me to close off on this tangent by gleefully typing out the slight that Halpin passed on earlier. Dr. Hunt, more like Dr. C-word. Yeah. George and I are on really different pages. Yes, I think that's bad and wrong, but it was probably just a mistake. Back to the matter at hand, however, because it wasn't just the choice to utilize Hunt as the sole pathologist that raised some eyebrows, but also how he conducted himself while acting as such. For example, many say he dallied to a peculiar degree, not arriving on the scene until 2.5 hours after Dr. Kelly's remains were first discovered, and then somehow taking 25 minutes to pronounce him dead. Then an hour and a half later, supposedly due to how long it took the police to complete a fingertip search and to erect a scene tent, he began his proper investigation. Now, I'm no doctor, far from it in fact, but I'll be damned if I don't hear the charge that he was intentionally dallying and don't just happen to find it amenable, as that strikes me as a hell of a delay. I know nothing about pronouncing someone dead. I don't know how long it takes. I don't know if there are things you need to sign or phone calls you need to make. I don't know how long that takes. I don't know if you could just roll up and just like put a finger on the neck and be like, he's dead, Jim. Consider this too. According to various sources I consulted, if one wishes to get an accurate time of death, it is the done thing to take the rectal temperature of the remains as soon as possible. The natural waning of the remains' temperature to that of the ambient environment, providing a clear indicator of exactly how long they sat lifeless for. So with that in mind, where do you suppose the Hunt took said temperature, given that he began his proper investigation at around 2 p.m? 7:15 p.m. would be the answer to that, folks, which also happened to be a mere 4 minutes before he packed up and left the scene. Alright, so, like, in my opinion, and also in George's opinion, I don't think he's super competent, but he was also competent enough to be on that list, so someone thought highly of him. This naturally begs the question, why? Why did he leave something so vital that had to be done with all due haste to the absolute last minute? And again, I'm going to incompetence rather than conspiracy again, because it's just more likely to be incompetence. As I see it, only two possibilities exist. Either A, he was acting with abject incompetence, which, make no mistake, I'm only too happy to assume, or B, it was done intentionally for some reason. As a result of this delay, when all was said and done on the day, Hunt ended up having to essentially eyeball the estimated time of death, which he put down as being between 18 and 27 hours before he took Dr. Kelly's rectal temperature. He had an explanation for this, however, as he told the Hutton Inquiry that he was attempting to retrieve as much evidence.
You're gonna send me all the way home. You are. Everything's one shot and it's stupid.
Contamination from a third party. It's interesting too that he claims such an interest in DNA retrieval. Yeah, is this his job? Isn't he just doing the autopsy? He's the one who's like, what did he die from? Not going around. He's not a crime scene investigator. Because he also claimed to have found a slight area of blood staining to the left of Dr. Kelly's remains, which he, nor anyone else for that fact, ever bothered to have DNA tested. It's a bit weird, isn't it? It's a bit odd. Some more peculiarity can be found from Dr. Kelly's autopsy too, because again, according to sources I looked up, because I'm not a doctor, livor mortis is a cracking way of determining the time of someone's death. Yeah, I have to say, I've watched so much CSI that I thought they always just stuck that big-ass needle into the liver to tell the time of death. Essentially, when a heart stops pumping, the blood begins to make its way down to the lower parts of the body, courtesy of gravity, which creates
Please! Why won't you dodge? Why am I full?
This is useful in determining the time of death. Livor mortis begins between 20 minutes...
What's with the developers and their fucking stam retardation? Your stamina bar fucking sucks. Stop doing it.
6 to 12 hours. Oh, okay, so this is something else. I thought this liver thing was what they do on CSI when they stick the big needle into someone's liver, but it seems yet another way of determining time of death. And reaches its maximum within 6 to 12 hours. How far along it is in the process allows the time of death to be deduced. As for how it gets weird, that'd be because Hunt told the Hutton Inquiry that Dr. Kelly's remains had big-time liver morticized. That's an interesting claim, because how was that the case when Dr. Kelly is meant to have lost 5 pints of blood? And that's really much all I have to say. Wait, I don't think he was meant to have lost 5 pints of blood. Didn't they say that he just lost a pint? And I was speculating that it was a pint combined with the underlying condition, combined with the coproximol, that led to his death. not losing 5 pints of blood. And that's pretty much all I have to tell you about in this chapter, folks. And you'll have to admit, skeptical though most of you no doubt were half an hour ago-ish, the idea that Dr. Kelly was murdered suddenly doesn't look so outlandish now, does it?
Terrible-ass, fucking worthless-ass design.
I totally think this is
worst design I've seen so far.
I'm sure people in the comments being like, oh, Simon's been paid off by the MOD because they want to believe
this
in
fucking terrible-ass design.
It's a conspiracy. I haven't yet seen enough.
You can tell one-shots are like hard-coded into their retard design. So they wrote like getting you out of the one-shots out of their design.
And I think it
it's
requires
so stupid.
Extraordinary evidence. And we have not seen anything close to extraordinary evidence. We've seen incompetence and some vague circumstantial stuff. Best case, George. Sorry. Because while we might not be able to say what did happen to any degree of certainty between the endorsement by legit big-brain types, the peculiarities with his chosen method, the weirdness with his blood, the situation with the tablets, the heart condition that everyone somehow mispriced.
What's with the one-shots in every single fucking game? Worth this piece of shit
here,
developers.
Again, I kinda disagree.
What's with the one-shots? What ails you, piece of shit developer? Get the one-shot shots out of your fucking games. Get them gone. One-shots are never appropriate. Maybe when an explosion goes off, that's it. Stop one-shotting, you worthless piece of shit developers. Stop doing it in Overwatch. Stop doing it in this game. Stop doing it in every game. Stop doing one-shots. Stop doing them. Why? Stop doing this damn bullshit where I can't move or swing or do anything. Why? Life was just never like that. I put my backpack down or something. What's wrong with you, piece of shit developer? What's wrong with you?
Right?
What's wrong with you, piece of shit developer? Do you think one-shots and not being able to move and idiot stand bars are good design? I don't. I think you should probably fail this game. I think you should fail because of this shit. Do you see this? You should fail and not succeed with Nightingale because of this little gameplay loop right the fuck here. We can all yell at you, you worthless piece of shit developer, because you are. You're a worthless piece of shit developer. You can't see your way past these problems. You don't know how to design video games then. I would have come up in the first 2 minutes of this design of this temple. I would have been like, absolutely not. We have like another 10 days of work to do. Nah, what you think is here isn't good. Fucking fix it. And fix the stand bar. Fix the bullshit. Fix the weight limit. Fix your bullshit. Fix your bullshit from Morrowind era bullshit. Stop doing it. Stop doing this stupid ass shit. Stop doing stamina. Stop doing fucking stupid ass can't move. Stupid ass bullshit with weight. Stupid ass bullshit with loot. Stop doing all of this stupid ass crumb bum shit from 1996, you worthless cocksucker. Fuck you. Ah. Why? Why would you design like this? Why? Why would you design like this? Come on, man. How many fucking goblins are there? Was it 55 for a 2-man? Was it 55 versus 2 again? You worthless piece of shit developer. Get a clue. Was it 55 goblins versus her and me, and I'm not allowed to move? Was that really the odds here? It is, because you suck a lot of dick, that's why. You suck too much dick. I mean, you really do. You suck too much dick as a developer. I can't move. Your fucking worthless stamina is so goddamn bad. Every game I fucking play, get your worthless stamina mechanic from worthless-ass Twilight Princess on the fucking worthless-ass Switch, and stop using the stamina mechanic from Genshin Impact. Stop doing it. You suck dick at it. Stop using it. I don't know. I don't know. I can't move. I don't know. You're so goddamn fucking dumb. You're so fucking dumb. I can't believe you did this to me at the end of the dungeon. I can't even loot that loot over there. I'm gonna fucking lose it. Because you suck dick at design. You have no clue how to design a fucking video game. They gave you all this money and all this shit, millions of dollars, and you can't figure out a fucking inventory or a fucking stamina meter. How dare you make this video game? You can't figure out a stamina meter or a fucking inventory. As I stumble walk. Fucking stumble walk. You worthless piece of shit developer. I need you to get better than this. You're never gonna succeed. Most of you guys can't succeed anymore because you do this stupid ass shit. You do this stupid ass shit. Why do you do this stupid ass shit? Why do you do this? You suck dick. This is you sucking dick all day, you worthless developer. Why do you do this stupid shit? Why? Why do you do this stupid ass shit? Nobody wants you to do this. You're so goddamn brain dead piece of shit. Worthless ass fucking developer. What the fuck's wrong with you? Why would you take my 10 minute? Why would you take 10 minutes to walk to that box? I'm not dumping the loot on the fucking ground. No. I gotta go to bed, man. Like, your fucking worthless ass piece of shit design is stressing me the fuck out. Walking to this box makes me so angry that if I was in the fucking same room as you, I'd fucking straight cold cock you, no warning. Straight up, it makes me violently angry how fucking offensive your design is sometimes. Look at this bullshit. Look at this fucking bullshit. Wake up, you fucking retard developer. This is unacceptable. Don't ever do this again. Don't do the stamina meters. Don't do the fucking inventory problems. We've been yelling at you about this for 30 fucking years. Stop doing this stupid ass brain dead fucking shit that nobody wants. Nobody wants this in the video games. Get it the fuck out of here. Get it the fuck out of here now. Get this worthless ass shit out of your game. Get it the fuck gone. It's not my fault you gave me 5,000 items. You suck dick at item design and fucking inventory design and walkings design and stamina design and transfer design. It's not my fault you suck so much at all this design. It's not my fault. You know, I just take the items that you give me. You suck so much at design. Fuck you. Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't play this game, huh? If that's how you're gonna fucking treat me at the end of the dungeon, waste my goddamn time like this, and make me come back for 15 fucking minutes? For what? Because you can't design an inventory correctly? You fucking suck dick, you worthless piece of shit developer. It's not a joke anymore. You need to fucking stop doing this worthless ass shit. Stop doing this worthless ass shit. Stop doing it. You've been stealing it from us for far too long. I'm calling for the death of your fucking corporations now. I can't stand you worthless ass fucking developers. I can't stand you. What you've done to fucking video games with your laziness and your bullshit is unacceptable. Your fucking lazy ass fucking bullshit ass stam meter and your lazy ass bullshit ass fucking inventory bullshit and all of your all equivalent bullshit and your 50 boxes and all your problems in every single fucking game that I play. You could easily fucking fix it. But no, that would require doing something. You can't do that. That would require competence. You don't have that. You're not even close to that. You're like that fucking joke down the street, the clown shoes dude that's drinking in the fucking alley down the corner and around the block from confidence. You know what I'm saying? You're not competent. You're not competent. Your design is not competent. You do deserve to fail with this. A lot of people came here, they saw what you thought was acceptable and immediately left. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. You need to fucking hear it. Fix a lot of this stupid bullshit. I've been very nice about it. I haven't said a fucking word till you fucking stick that worthless ass design in my face. Steal 15 minutes of my goddamn time for no fucking reason, so I have to teleport out of the dungeon. For what? So you can jack off with your inventory fucking problems in 2024? Fuck you. I just won't play your game then. How's that? Bye. You know what I'm saying? Fuck you, jack off. Fuck you. Design better. Fuck you. I get this shit in Rust, I get this shit in fucking DayZ, I get this shit in fucking, like, ESO and 76 and all this bullshit. I'm sick of your inventory problems. Fucking fix it, cocksucker! Fucking fix it. I don't care who you are, what game you make, you all do it. This is to every developer out there in the RPG scene. You suck at inventory. You fucking suck at it. You fucking suck at it. Even New World, like, still sort of sucks at it. It's a lot better than you, but you all suck at it. You all suck at inventory. It is like the worst design in the history of video games. It's the basic ass inventory in the average ass MMO. You need to fucking fix it. You're so fucking bad at what you do. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. You're so fucking bad at what you do. You make me so angry all of the fucking time. All of the fucking time. For fucking base ass shit like what I just saw. Like, you get to the end of the dungeon, too much loot in the dungeon, you come in empty, you fill up in the dungeon, before you even get to the fucking end, you and your companion are fucking overlogged in this brain dead piece of shit moron fucking reality that you're in. Where, like, you just, like, pass the cost of being a worthless piece of shit developer directly onto me, and you steal 20 minutes of my fucking life away because you can't design a fucking inventory correctly in your game that's, you know, in your fucking game that has had 50 years of influence. 50 years for you to learn to not do stupid shit like this, you fucking cocksuckers. Stop fucking us on the inventory. Stop doing it. Stop slow walking us. Stop doing that stupid ass shit. If you give us too much loot, that's your issue. You're still a bad developer. Either fucking way. Either stop giving us so much loot or fix the fucking inventory. One or the other. Stop fucking us on the inventory and the walk speed and the stamina meters. Stop doing it. You build these fucking walking sims. You expect me to cover 300 kilometers a fucking day, and you slow me down to an inch a fucking hour or something like that when I'm overlogged with your bullshit, with your fucking rusty tampons and your rusty fucking coat hooks and your fucking screws and looses and, you know, this and that and twigs and branches and bullshit, all basically garbage. You fill my inventory with it, and then you fucking fuck me on my walk speed. Get a fucking clue, you worthless piece of shit developers. From Stalker 2 to World of Warcraft to Fallout 76 to New World to goddamn Nightingale to fucking every RPG out there. You guys suck dick. ESO, it doesn't matter what it is. You guys suck dick at inventory. You are really fucking bad at it. You give us 10 times the loot what we can fit. It has been like this for 30 fucking years. I can't really handle it anymore. I come to some new game like Nightingale trying to get away from that fucking bullshit, and most of the time it doesn't really feel too bad, but it does in every single fucking game that I play except for Eve. I mean, no, even Eve, like, the inventory is kind of a pain in the fucking ass. This little 200 meter thing, fucking horse shit. It's a fucking spaceship. What the fuck are you talking about? Come on, man. There's no weight in space. Make the spaceship bigger then. There's no weight in the fucking space, and yet you brought your inventory problems to fucking every game that I fucking play. And I just call for the death of CCP. I call for the death of Blizzard. I call for the death of Inflection Games or whatever. I call for the death of Face Punch. I call for the death of you worthless piece of shit triple anus cocksuckers fucking us with inventory for 30 fucking years. You do deserve the death of your fucking companies. I hope Elder Scrolls 6 doesn't sell at all. You've been fucking us on inventory for 30 years. You gotta fucking fix it, pieces of shit. Fucking fix it. On that wonderful note, I'm just gonna bail out. I'm sorry, I'm obviously too angry to deal with this bullshit inventory in Final Fantasy, this bullshit inventory in Eve, this bullshit inventory in fucking Nightingale, this bullshit inventory in ESO, bullshit inventory in 76, bullshit inventory in WoW, bullshit inventory on every single fucking live service fucking RPG, every single last fucking one of them. How you managed to fucking be this brain dead for 30 years fucking straight. You don't deserve these companies. You don't deserve the money. You don't deserve to go home to that nice house and those kids in the fucking hills in Irvine and shit like this. You don't deserve that shit that you have. You've been stealing from us. You've been mistreating us with fucking inventory and frame rate and fucking bullshit with walking stam mechanics that are just piece of shit mechanics that nobody wants, and fucking walking sims. You've been fucking us too long. You must stop now, piece of shit developer. You must stop doing this to us. Even brand new games are worse about it. They're fucking worse about it. Fix your fucking inventory problems. You give us 5,000 pounds of loot and 200-pound inventories. Is it a hard concept for your brain dead, low IQ, piece of shit crumb bum developer ass to fucking understand? Stop fucking us on inventory. Stop doing it. I wish I was kidding. I wish it was a meme. Nobody will ever listen to me because they can see the anger is actually righteous. I mean what I say. And I'm not wrong either. You can run and tell that. Or whatever. You can run and tell that. Every developer in the world's going to know I'm absolutely the fuck right. Hey, what's up with GeForce Now? Can you actually close your client? Are you such a piece of shit developer that you can't close your own client? Please close this client. Please get more competent than you are. Please stop stealing from us. And please stop doing this stupid ass bullshit ass inventory. Please stop doing it. Please stop doing it. I gotta beg you guys. I've said it like 650 times in the last 5 minutes. You gotta stop fucking us on inventory. I've been bitching about it for 3 fucking years. You gotta stop fucking us on the inventory. You gotta stop doing it. I'll fucking fuck your companies. I'll boycott you. I will never buy your products again, and I will warn everybody about how bad you are. And I will. I'll do it for years and years. I will stop doing this. Like, full blown, I will just stop doing it. If you're gonna fuck me on inventory and give me 5 billion items and 0 inventory, I'm just gonna stop fucking playing your worthless piece of shit games. And where will you be then? You know what'll happen. No more job. Like what's happening with all those layoffs in the fucking industry. I vote with my fucking money. You keep fucking me on fucking inventory. I'll fucking fuck you for your entire goddamn company. I'll vote with my money and I'll never play your game again. Fuck you guys. You gotta stop fucking us with those inventories. You gotta promise me by the end of this year, you have stopped fucking us on the inventory. You gotta stop fucking us on the inventory. I don't care what your brain dead piece of shit developer's mind says about how you can't store stuff on your server or anything like that. Your inventories, they're huge. You must address it. It is the worst problem in video games. You fuck us with inventories in every single game that I play. Every single one. I can't name one where it isn't a fucking shit show. You worthless piece of shit developers. I am not being hyperbolic at all. Every single MMO on the market has terribly bad, woeful inventory issues. All of them. All of them. From old school RuneScape to World of Warcraft and everything in between. All of them, motherfucker. Every last one of them. You, some piece of shit developer, brain dead, fucking low IQ developer, can't fucking figure out what a bigger inventory is after 30 fucking years. Yeah, you don't deserve the industry. Get the fuck out of it. You don't know how to design games. Get the fuck out of here. May your company die. May your kids not eat. I mean, for real, man, you want to treat us like this for 30 fucking years? Lose your industry then. Lose your fucking industry. Stop fucking with us on the inventory. You ever seen a Diablo inventory or something like that? Jesus Christ, have you seen the Diablo inventory and what Blizzard thinks is okay for a fucking inventory? Fuck you, Blizzard. Hope you die. Like, straight up, fuck you, Blizzard, hope you die. 30 years of it, you can die. Go, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, I hope you die. Full blown, don't care. Had no sympathy for the fucking devilish piece of shit developers that want to steal years and years and years and years of time sink over inventory. No sympathy for the fucking piece of shit software developer devil. No sympathy. You know, I'm sick of you treating me like that. Well, making me walk fucking just to reach the front door of that house. It took me 15 minutes to walk 7 feet. You fucking moron. What have I got? What am I dragging a goddamn cart full of fucking, fucking like anvils behind me? Well, I mean, what is this? No, it's my fucking it's my backpack. It's not a truck full of anvils and I'm moving it like, an inch a minute or something like this, right? It's a fucking backpack, you brain dead pieces of shit. It's a backpack. Stop fucking with me. Stop fucking with me with your worthless ass inventory. Stop doing it. You guys suck so much at this. I hope you do lose your companies. You deserve it. On that wonderfully positive note, and all that rage, I'm going to bail the fuck out before it gets any worse and some other game pisses me off with their inventory too. Because it's every game that I play. It is every game. Oh, I can just roll them. I can roll all 20 and I can show you the inventory retardation on every single fucking game that I play. Every single last one. Full inventories on all 20 MMOs. Brain dead piece of shit developers on all 20 MMOs. You all deserve to lose your companies. No sympathy for the fucking devil. You fucked us for 30 years. Fuck you, you're gone. Even the new ones fuck us right now for 5 years now. 76, New World, still fucking us on inventory. Even the new ones are fucking us on inventory. You guys can just lose it all as far as I'm concerned. I'm not paying you monthlies anymore. None of you guys. You guys don't deserve the money. I'm not buying your new games or anything like that. You guys fucking suck. With friends like you, who needs Nazis and thieves? You know what I'm saying? You guys stab us in the fucking back so bad. You mistreat children, sell them loot boxes, and fuck them in the ass like Valve and all this shit. I'm sick of you fucking developers. And then you fuck me with a walking thing on my new game. You fuck me with an inventory thing on my new game. And I was like, oh, we were doing so good. We made it another 20 or 30 hours. And then you, as the piece of shit brain dead developer, rear your ugly, retarded, fucking idiosyncratic bullshit where you dump inventory problems on me and you fucking force walking sim through some mentally retarded stamina bar. And I'm just fucking done with you. I'm full done with your bad design. You can just go suck a dick, you worthless piece of shit developers. Suck a dick, for real. Like, I consider you the enemy. With pieces of shit like you, the industry has no hope. No hope at all. You can't figure out a straight fucking inventory right. You can't get an inventory right. And you keep building these massive games. You can't get an inventory right. You need a serious come to Jesus moment. You can't get inventory right. Why would you build these huge games? You can't get an inventory right. Get an inventory right and then talk to me about Elden Ring. I mean, like straight up. Like Elden Ring didn't have inventory problems, actually. I mean, yes, it did. Sorting through all of those fucking items was not fun. It was not fun. Okay, now that I've screamed myself fucking hoarse right before fucking bed because of a piece of shit, worthless ass third party developer who can't figure out a fucking inventory or a stamina bar. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Fucking figure out your fucking job. All the rest of us drove taxi and shit like that for 30 years. We didn't fuck around and crash you into walls. Why do you get to crash us into walls? Do your fucking job, worthless piece of shit developers. I'm like foaming at the fucking mouth. Do your fucking jobs. Fix your fucking games. I love you guys. Goodbye.